Hey guys, Redneck Mini 14 here, and you're looking at the greatest battle implement ever devised. Yes, that would be the M1 Garand. At least it was the greatest battle implement ever devised back in the 1940s when World War II was going on. um, Anyway, this is a review of my CMP M1 Garand. This particular one is a Springfield Armory, at least the receiver is. When you get an M1 Garand from the CMP, it's pretty much luck of the draw between H&R or HRA and Springfield Armory receivers. And that's just the receiver. All the other parts are pretty much mixed, matched, and how they did their refurbishing. All the parts are interchangeable, so you could have a Springfield receiver and a Winchester charging handle, an H&R, trigger group. It just depends on how the guns were put together during the refurbishing portion of its life. But anyway, this particular one, I did an unboxing video of this back in December. This particular one has a Springfield Armory receiver, like I said, and this is a service grade M1 Garand, which is, I guess, the third step up. There's the very bottom, the lowest grade you can get is a rat grade, and I don't even know if they have any of those in stock right now. Then there's the field grade, which I believe costs $630, at least the last time I checked. That's what it cost. And then there's the service grade, which is this one, which is $730. These are, of course, the CMP grades and prices. If you get them on the private market, you should expect to pay quite a bit more than $700 for an M1 Garand. But that's why I went with the CMP, because they have really good deals on Garands, and they're pretty much ready to fire and ready to function right when you get them. Of course, you gotta degrease them, get the cosmoline out of them from the storing process that they went through back in the day. This one, I don't think really had too much cosmoline in it. I took it apart and soaked all the pieces in mineral spirits, which is supposed to be a pretty good process to take the cosmoline out of it. And I really didn't see very much cosmoline come out of it. A little bit from the inside of the receiver and all that, but not a whole lot compared to what other people get out of their guns. So anyway, the stock, like I said back in my other my unboxing video, it's a new production stock that the CMP put on their service grades and their select grade or special grade or whatever. There's one or two other grades above the service grade, which are of course more expensive. I chose to go with the service grade, kind of middle of the road in terms of how good they are, or how good of a condition it's in. Let's see here. There's a CMP cartouche right here, a little CMP logo thing that tells you that this is a new production stock from the CMP. By the way, this is an extremely heavy rifle. In case you've never picked up an M1 Garand, they're really heavy rifles, and that's because of the way that they're built. The M1 Garand is actually a really clever design. I'll get into that in a little bit. But it's a really heavy rifle because of the way it's built and the way it functions. For number one, it has the full length, well, almost full length wood stock. You got the two different two-piece handguard, and of course the long wooden stock. But also the gas system. So of course you have your barrel, which is, I think it's 24 inches. I'll annotate it if that's wrong. But, a 24-inch barrel, all steel. And then of course your gas system, which runs underneath the barrel. So you have your gas tube up here, and then of course you have your op rod that goes underneath here into the gas tube, and that's all steel as well. And it runs all the way along the bottom and up in here. And this is, so basically the whole front of the gun is just like kind of a big chunk of steel, or several big chunks of steel put together. So it's very front heavy rifle. I guess it's like 9 pounds or something, 9.5 pounds. I haven't weighed it, but weights vary depending on density of the wood, how much cosmoline's in the rifle, etc., etc. But typically probably like 9.5 pounds. Of course, that weight goes up if you put a sling on it and if it's loaded. Which, by the way, it of course takes these 8-round end block clips. These are reloaded rounds, 150 grain, full metal jacket. Can't think of who made these bullets. Might have been Hornady, I don't know. But this is just brass picked up off the range, and CCI primers. Once I get better at reloading, I might do a reloading video on M1 Garand 30-06 reloading. By the way, these particular rounds are pretty light. They don't actually cycle the action fully, so most of the time the brass will eject, but it won't load the next round. So with these particular rounds, you have to pretty much do it manually, which is okay as long as it's not overcharging, overpowering the rifle. And with the M1 Garand, it has a very sensitive gas system, so if you have a really hot round, you could damage the op rod, which is not good. So I started off reloading at the bottom of the, at the minimum, actually a little bit above minimum for the charge for the 150 grain bullet. But next time I'll go a couple grains higher. So I got a lot of room to go up. So basically I'm just going to try and go up from there. Hopefully the next time it'll be powerful enough to cycle the action fully, because it really sucks having to manually cycle the action every round. But I still have a whole bunch of these clips full of ammunition to go through before I get to that point. And of course I might get some factory ammunition later on as well. But yeah, anyway, like I said, the M1 Garand has a very sensitive gas system. It's because the rifle itself was actually built around the specific 30-06 round that they had at the time, which was what they used in the OP3 Springfields. So basically the gun is built around the round that they used at the time, and it's a whole lot different than most 30-06 rounds that we have today. And so you either have to buy factory ammunition that's specifically made for the M1 Garand, or military surplus ammunition, or you can reload your own ammunition like I do. Okay. The M1 Garand, of course, came out in 1936, I believe. It was designed by John Garand, or John Garand, whichever you prefer to spell it. I kind of like John Garand since, the rifle is known as the M1 Garand. It was originally chambered in a different round. It was like 2.76 Pedersen or something like that, and then it was changed over to the 30-06 because of the ammunition that the military had at the time. So that's why we have 30-06. And there are other newer M1 Garands that are either rechambered or just kind of copies of the M1 Garand that you can get from like Fulton Armory or maybe some other companies that are chambered in .308 Winchester, which I guess is a little bit more economical to shoot, but I tend to like the 30-06 better because it's just the classic M1 Garand round that they used. Again, like I said, the M1 Garand, let's see where I'm at on the, okay. The M1 Garand is a very clever rifle. If you've ever taken apart an M1 Garand, you would know that. And that's because, number one, it has an internal magazine. This portion right here would be considered the magazine of the rifle. And of course you have your clip. This is a clip, not a magazine. And you stick it down and you push it down and you have 8 rounds in your internal magazine fed through an M-block clip. Well, the follower, which is right here, the spring tension from the follower actually comes from the recoil spring that the op rod is propelled forward by. So the recoil spring is actually what pushes up the rounds to go into the chamber. So that's actually a pretty clever design. Let's see, what else? Of course, it has a last shot hold open like this, so you can, once your last round comes out and your clip shoots out the top, and you can just push in your next clip and charge the rifle again. You have a release right here, so if you ever want to unload your rifle for whatever reason, you just pull the op rod back, and then you hit this little button right here, and it will eject your clip of ammunition with however many rounds you have left. Or you can just shoot all 8 rounds of ammunition through the gun, which is the way I prefer to do it. You can close your action by pulling back and pushing down and just releasing. It comes apart just like a Mini 14 or an M1A. Well, what do you know? Because those rifles came from this rifle right here. Yeah, the Mini 14, the M1A, which are some of my favorite rifles, as is this. They get their DNA from the M1 Garand, but of course, I'm sure you already knew that before you clicked on this video. Which, because of, the success of the M1 Garand, which is kind of why the M14, M1A, Mini 14, Mini 30, all those rifles are pretty successful because they, their DNA comes from the M1 Garand, which was a very popular and successful rifle with the military. Your safety, which is your Garand style safety, what do you know? As in the trigger guard right here, outside the trigger guard is a fire, and inside the trigger guard is safe, just like a Mini 14. The sights, come around here, are fully adjustable peep sights in the back with a winged post in the front. Again, just like a Mini 14 M1A. Has sling swivels. This is actually a swivel for having your rifle, having 3 or 4 rifles in kind of a TP configuration to keep the muzzle out of the dirt. So that's what this one's for, and that's why it's open like this. But it also has sling swivels right here, and of course in the back. And in the back of the rifle, in the stock, you have this little trap door, which is kind of hard to get open, but you have a little trap door for your cleaning kit, your cleaning rods. They all go in here, which is again another clever design. And you also see that in the M1A and other rifles that the military uses. Even my AR-15 with the A2 style stock has a trap door in the back for a cleaning kit. I don't have any cleaning kits for this or that rifle, so that's that, but whatever. Let's see, what else can I tell you about this rifle? This particular rifle, at least the receiver, dates back to August of 1943. So it is possible that this rifle was at D-Day, or at least the receiver of the rifle was at D-Day, but I have no way of knowing that. And of course, there are plenty of other conflicts that it could have been in. Of course, the Korean War. And I don't remember if they put these in Vietnam or not. If they did, it wasn't in any large numbers. But again, this at least the receiver, again, like I said, was probably in World War II and Korea. Maybe not. As far as manufacturers go, if you get an M1 Garand, it's most likely going to be from one of 4 manufacturers, actually probably more like one of 3. But there were 4 manufacturers that made M1 Garands for the United States military. There's Springfield, which is this one, H&R, Winchester, and International Harvester also made some M1 Garands as well. And also, Beretta, I think, made some M1 Garands for the Italian military or something like that. I'm not real familiar with the history behind the Beretta M1 Garands, but I think they were a little bit different configuration. They had, sniper models and I think tanker models as well. But, those are the manufacturers that you'll come across. And again, you're probably going to spend a little bit more than I did if you get yours on the private market. I got this from the CMP. I believe they're still, selling these. They get, however many a year, and they sell them for $730 or whatever they're going for. And of course, there are all the different grades that you can get. There's, the field grade, the service grade, and I think the special grade are the 3 most common that people get. And sometimes you can get a rat grade, which is, bottom of the barrel. And I think there's like a correct grade where all the parts match, the serial numbers on the parts match. And, I'm not real familiar with all that, but I chose to go with the service grade. And I'm very happy with it. It's the rifle is more accurate than I am. I was shooting clay pigeons, just sitting on a dirt mound at like 75 yards. And I was able to hit them and bust them up at 75 yards with just these iron sights. So the rifle is more accurate than I am. I've only put 24 rounds through it so far. That's 3 clips of ammunition. I was going to put some more through it, but since I have to manually cycle the action with these light loads, I just cut my shooting short that day. Again, I'll load some hotter rounds in the future and get some factory ammunition so I don't have to manually cycle the action every time. But yeah, that's the Springfield M1 Garand, and that's all I really have to say about that. Of course, I'll have other videos featuring this rifle in the future, probably some shooting videos, and just some other videos in general. But anyway, subscribe to my channel, like me on Facebook. I'm Redneck Mini 14, and until next time, be safe.